This shows up.
It's you're long, you're long.
It's showing inverted.
Don't worry, you're long.
Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to Spiritual Adventures on March 22nd. Okay, so before I begin, I will just mention that there was a small error in the announcements, FYI, that came through, and it said I was going to talk about vaccines. Actually, that's 2 weeks from now. That's on April 5th. So today's program is on the science of sanitary precautions. Okay, so I'm going to just talk about some practical science. So don't worry, you don't have to remember any of your high school science here, though it would help if you do remember some of it. But some practical science, because it'll give you motivation to do what needs to be done. And also some, maybe not get too worried about some of the things that are happening out there, in particular, shortages of products, which are rampant right now. Okay, so let's get started. So what are we talking about? So there's the title, Science of Sanitary Precautions. I just wanted to make sure that's what we are going to talk about. Okay, so I just cannot talk about this without giving a little bit of the person who first brought sanitary precautions to the world of science and medicine, and that is Ignaz Semmelweis. And that was so controversial, he actually was persecuted somewhat for saying that. He said all doctors should clean their hands before performing operations. And it seems crazy right now, but it was considered really controversial at that time. So at that time, though, when they talked about cleaning, they were using chlorinated water, extreme measures. And it's only not so long ago we realized that actually you don't have to go that far. Simple things, much simpler things are enough. Okay, so in order to do that, we need to understand a little bit. So believe it or not, the science about this is mostly about water. Water, I think all of you know, is a special substance, okay? So let me just point this, you don't need to know anything more, but water has a special structure. So here we go. This is what it looks like. And it's, you don't need to know anything more about it, just need to know that it has a special structure. That special structure is responsible for all the properties that we know about water, that makes life possible. So we wouldn't exist without water. We are mostly bags of water anyway. So all biological systems need water. That is what it's based on. And it's all related to this structure, this special structure that makes it possible. Okay. Now, water is not the only liquid. There are other liquids available. So because of this special property of water, and water is so abundant, anything that does not interact with this special structure, there are some that will interact with this special structure. We'll talk about it. For example, salt. You can put salt into water, you can put sugar into water. Those things will interact with it, and biological molecules also interact with it. But there are other liquids that do not, and that's important to know. So the classic example of that is oil. So if you take oil and water do not mix. Okay, so, and here's a picture to show, and this is on one side of it, oil and water. So if you have oil, and oil has a very different structure, will not mix with water, and we talk about the expression we use a Greek expression saying hydrophilic. Hydro means water. You know that philic means in Greek it means love, water loving. Hydrophilic or hydrophobic, water hating. So oil is considered hydrophobic. Water, of course, is the ultimate hydrophilic substance. These two do not mix. Okay, and so all biological systems actually are a mix of those two, but if you must have water, and biological systems must be hydrophilic and will be in water. So if you take one biological molecule, I don't know, bacteria or something, put it into oil, what happens? It dies. So here is the central idea. If you want to kill viruses, bacteria, whatever, all these harmful substances, one way to do that is maybe take our hands and put it into oil. All right, now that, okay, it's kind of messy, but you can't, it doesn't work that way. Why not? Because, again, go back to this picture. What does it do? Oil separates from water, it floats on it. So there will, anytime you have a little, even a little bit of water sticking into your hands, and you won't be able to see, tiny amounts of water is good enough for all these creatures to live on it. Bacteria, viruses, and all sorts of things can live on it. And it's very, very difficult to eliminate it. To give you an example, this particular virus which we are dealing with can live outside for up to 9 days. It's highly contagious and and why is it able to do that? It can find pockets of water, places, and survive. So just taking your hands and putting it into oil does not do it. It will survive, and there's no way to get rid of it that way. How do you then get rid of it? The way we have figured out is, again, going back to this structure. You must have something that destroys this structure in water. All right. What can destroy that structure? We have a miraculous substance that can do that. And that is alcohol. Alcohol is what we call a substance that actually is an organic substance, which means mostly it's hydrophobic, but it has a hydrophilic group in it. So it has a water-loving part and water-hating part both together. So that will dissolve in water, and when it dissolves in water, it goes about destroying the structure in water, and as a result, you put a bacteria into it, it dies. All right, so if you could, instead of dipping your hands in oil, which is not going to get rid of it, as I said, because there'll always be pockets of water, you dip your hand into alcohol, alcohol will dissolve into the water everywhere. Okay. Now let's go. Dipping your hands into alcohol may not be the best way. So what do? You can take some alcohol and rub it into your hands. Okay, that's, yeah. All of you know it evaporates really quickly. So one more thing you need to know, this takes time. So you can't just quickly rub alcohol into your hands and think that that's going to be enough. No, it's not going to be enough. You're going to have to give it a little bit of time to work its magic and destroy all these things. And before that, it might all evaporate because our hands are warm. So we have to put this into water, into alcohol, and the alcohol must go into water, stay there for a little bit, and then it's going to be good. So what's the solution? And that's what we have in this miraculous substance, hand sanitizer. So it has mostly alcohol, water, very little water, but it has another alcohol which is commonly found, glycerol. Now, glycerol is also an alcohol, but it has a lot of the oily part in it. So it's not as good as your normal alcohol, but because it's oily, it will stop the evaporation. So what is this? Alcohol and glycerol with a little bit of water in it. That's all it is. Okay, So that tells you something, doesn't it? You can make this. Yes, you can make this easily. So stores out of it. We have some here, of course, but stores out of it, and people are selling it for God knows what price on online markets. If you can go and get some alcohol, and again, I'm not sure whether that's still available, but if you normally they would find it in one of the pharmacies. You can find alcohol, you can find glycerol, bring it home, and the WHO has a recipe on how to make this, and you're all good. You don't need to pay extra for this. All right, but there is something you need to know. If you're going to go with alcohol, as I said, you're not going to be able to find alcohol easily. So here is the thing we are trying to kill. I'll talk more about this at the next thing when we have the vaccine talk. But here is another point I need to tell, because this is also important. The CDC has been mentioning this. You don't need hot water to kill the bacteria. Well, because you can't. Okay, and that I wanted to show that here. So see this one measure of how we tell water has this special structure. You can measure a property, one property of water, which is called surface tension. You don't need to know about what that is, but it is a property. If that surface tension is high, and water value of surface tension, and you can, I don't know if you can see this really well, but it should be around 75 to 80 at this is given at different temperatures. This is in Fahrenheit, so at normal temperatures, you will find it at about 75 to 80. Take any other liquid, or ordinary liquid, alcohol, whatever, engine oil, whatever, it's about 20. So it's about 3 to 4 times the value of surface tension. Now, the goal is to try to reduce it down to the value that it is that you can then kill the bacteria with. So if it is at that high value, then you know it has a structure, and the bacteria and the viruses can live on it really well. Heating it does reduce it, but not enough. And that's what this graph tells you. Okay, you have gone, I have taken it up to 176. That's too hot for us to touch. And it still hasn't come down much. So that's not going to do it. What will do it is alcohol. So look at this one. It's amazingly, you can see how much it has reduced it all the way down to a really low value. Okay, and below the axis, it's showing from 0 to 1. Think about it as 0 to 100%. So when it's 0, you can see it is still at that 75 level, which I talked about. And as you increase the alcohol content, it is down, come down to almost that 20-25 level, which is where we want it to be. Okay, so now it's important to know what alcohol are we going to use. So you go to it's not easy to find 100% alcohol. Okay, so your quick thing is that, well, we have alcohol at home. So can I use beer? Nah, beer has about 3% to 6% alcohol. All right, so here, see that you're way down on this side, and that's not going to be any good. So we are sort of, if it's 3%, it's less than the 0.1 there. So 3 to 6%, that's not going to do it. What about wine? A little better, 12%. That's still not enough, as you can see. Okay, so I went and looked in my liquor cabinet, and I found this. What's the thing here? This one says 40%. Okay, this is much better. Still not good as perhaps it could be, but we are getting there. So you can see 40%, so that's 0.4 there. Still, now it has gone really down. Ideally, it should be greater than 50%. So then it'll be really good. But if at a pinch, you can use this. If you have vodka, which is sometimes goes up to 80 proof, 80%, that's even better. So 80, 90%, that's even better. So if you can have that, that's great. If not, this is good. So all you need is glycerol. Go raid your liquor cabinet, mix them in, and you have good hand sanitizer. By the way, this one, I looked it up, 70%. So really good. But you can manage with 50%, 40%. So look in your liquor cabinet for what has the highest alcohol content. Go to the store, get some glycerol, and you're good to go. You can make your own hand sanitizer, and you're good. All right. Now, let's say you don't have alcohol, don't want to go to the grocery store. Well, what do? Actually, there's another solution which is even better. And that is soap. Soap is better. It also does the same thing as alcohol. So that graph I showed you where it drops off, the value drops off dramatically, soap will do the same thing. But soap does something more, why it makes it more powerful. So what is soap? Soap also is this. So you can see that here, and here is a picture. It has these two sections. In science, we call molecules like this amphiphilic, that because they have this nicely separated, what we call hydrophilic section, and nicely in another hydrophobic section, both together on the same molecule, and that allows us to do this. It allows us to nicely put this together, dissolve it in water. So it dissolves in water because it has a hydrophilic section, somewhat like alcohol, but much better, dissolves really well. But it has another property. What it does, and this is hard to conceive of, but can you see the structure below? In science, we call this a micelle, and you can actually go look it up. Micelle, M-I-C-E-L-L-E. Can you see it forms this thing out of multiple molecules? So you have what we call an oily hydrophobic center, and you have a hydrophilic thing outside, and it floats around. What that can do, in other words, is that it dissolves in water, but with these things in it. And it has the ability to capture substances and usually what we use for soap is dirt. So you add this to water, this is what goes and brings up the dirt. It goes and brings up, you cook some food, all the oily stuff that is sticking onto the walls of the pot, this will go and form the structure around it, remove it, and then you can wash it away. What this does, okay, let me show you another picture here. Here we go. So here is the whole thing. You can see it doing that, washing, here you're showing that it's an oil, and the soap molecules come, surround it, lift it up, and off it goes. Why is this better? Well, you completely remove it. So you don't have to worry about it sticking there. So for example, if you use the sanitizer approach, it kills a virus, but the debris remains in your hands. This one removes that completely away, but more to the point, it does this really fast. So remember all these in the YouTube, that's 20-second hand washing songs and all that are going around? Yeah, they work because that's how quickly it does the job. So you don't have to wait around. It is effective, and I think this is still available in the stores, but I heard these are also selling out. Well, but if that's selling out, you have the old style bar soap. And we invented this so long ago, nobody knows when exactly. This is in prehistoric times, this was invented. And it's still the best solution for killing bacteria and viruses. We don't have anything we have vaccines, and I'm going to talk about vaccines, but that is to try to prevent you from getting infected. Once you got infected, we still don't have an effective solution to kill them, even though we are working on that, and there are some promising results that are coming up, but I might mention about that. But the point is that This is the only thing we have, and we invented this centuries ago. And it's still the most effective way. It works similar in some sense to the way hand sanitizer does, but it's better because it completely removes it and then you can wash it away and does it really fast. So generally, this is soap is better if you can go with it. Though both are good. For example, one thing soap does not do, which is why it's important, is that if you are a health worker and you want to go and see a patient, then you should put hand sanitizer because it prevents the bacteria from coming onto your hands in the first place. Soap, of course, is not that. It cleans what is there already and then new stuff can come in. So both have their uses. But let's say you went out, you're going to come back home, you want to go wash your hands right now, go wash your hands. It's better than using the hand sanitizer. Okay. But let's say if you are going someplace where, you kind of think there might be some possibility of the encountering someone with the virus, then hand sanitizer might work better because it will prevent it from coming into your hands in the first place. So both have their roles, but given the fact hand sanitizer is sold out everywhere, this is soap is there. So don't panic. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Don't panic. It's effective. And if you really, really want hand sanitizer, go raid your liquor cabinet and go get some glycerol and you should be good to go. Okay, so there are some uses for vodka, even if you hate alcohol. Okay, that is the message. So next week, what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about a lot more biology. Well, we have to, because vaccine development is not an easy thing. But again, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I want to just talk about some issues, what we are doing as scientists, what are we doing? By the way, I am an engineer scientist, but an engineer. Engineers, what we do, we specialize in trying to figure out how to mass produce stuff. So a scientist comes up with a method that alone is not enough. You want to come up with a vaccine, the next thing you have to do is to figure out how to make it in, millions of pounds of it so that we can disperse it. So something that cannot be manufactured in large scale does not work. And that's one of the current problems with vaccines that I'm going to be talking about. But we would long ago figured out how to make soap, how to make alcohol. By the way, one of the interesting things that's happening is distilleries right now are getting into the hand sanitizer business, not to make money, but to help their communities because they make alcohol. And you can buy glycerol right now. So why not make hand sanitizers for everybody? I am Arun Nataraja, just wanted to tell you, and this has been a Spiritual Adventures, not much spiritual, I hope, but something to think about. And that is all I have today. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.